Hello and welcome back. You know, wearing a properly broken in pair of boots has to be one of the most satisfying feelings that there is. And getting there is no easy task, but it's just like losing weight or getting in shape. The best path is just consistency and patience. Now, before we jump into different methods on how you can break in your boots, it's important to know the mechanics of this whole thing. So when you get a boot, right? These are meant to fit the bell curve of people, okay? So you buy a 9.5 pair of boots. They're supposed to fit most people with that size foot. They don't take into consideration all of the unique issues that people have with their feet, with high arches and wide feet. If they did, they'd have a massive inventory. So let's look at the mechanics of this thing, all right? When you buy your boots, they come completely flat. No creases, no bending, they're stiff leather and they need to be broken in. Now this is gonna vary from company to company with thicknesses and stiffnesses, but let's just say, you know, the general boot that you would buy. What you're really gonna need to do is break in two areas where your foot pivots, and that's right here by the toe and up here by your heel. And that's the way your foot naturally bends. So the first step that you take in those boots is gonna be the stiffest one of all. From then on, they're gonna loosen up. And what's gonna happen is the top of your boot here is gonna crease in different ways. Now, depending on the leather, you're gonna see it, it'll be a little bit more noticeable. What we're really talking about here is comfort. So you're gonna get creasing there because that's where your toe bends. And then when you step forward and then step back, you're gonna have creasing that goes along here. So you can see very clearly the way that these boots here have creased. So those are the two areas that we're really gonna wanna keep an eye on as we break in our boots. But let's start from the beginning. If you're watching this video, I assume that you probably bought a pair of boots, you're having a hard time breaking them in, and you're looking for some tips. Well, we're gonna get to that. But really, the best part and the most essential part of breaking in boots and getting them feeling very, very comfortable is in the fit process. They have to fit to begin with, because you're never gonna be able to break out or break in an ill-fitting pair of boots. If your toes are jammed up against the front, you're gonna be uncomfortable forever. Or if they're just not wide enough and you have a wide foot and you got, you know, like an E width, but you need a triple E, you're never gonna be able to stretch out that footbed. So really, it comes down to the fit in the beginning. When you get these boots, I know that we like to shop online these days, but it does pay to go to the store and try them on. Unfortunately, some places you just can't do that, all right? So you wanna buy some Thursday boots, for example. You could go to the New York City store and try them on, but what if you don't live close to a store that sells the boots that you want? Well, in that case, the best you can do is get measured. Go to a store, they have those Brannock devices, the ones that, you know, we all saw as kids. I mean, they still use those. It's still kind of like the gold standard where you put your foot in, they slide the sides, and then they give you your measurement. Make sure you know your proper size and whether you need a wide boot or not. Also be mindful that your left foot is probably a little bit different than your right foot. So always go with the bigger of the two, but ask the guy to measure both feet. You know, just go there, get measured. A lot of places have no problem doing it. Knowing your size is essential if you're gonna order boots online from any of these great manufacturers that I've covered on this channel. If possible, go custom. I know they're more expensive, but the last that they use to build most boots, they vary. It changes. So a 9.5 in one will not be a 9.5 in the other, or they're gonna fit differently. So you never really know what you're gonna get until you try these things on, unless you go custom. And really, there is no better fit than a custom fit boot. Congratulations, you bought your boots, you have them in the right size, you're looking at them in your house, just imagining all the cool stuff you're gonna do when you're in these things. This is the way that I begin to break them in. Now, if you have any additional stuff that you wanna add, let me know in the comments. I'm hoping that down there you can get a lot of knowledge from a lot of people. After all, not one of us is smarter than all of us. With the breadth of knowledge, you can get some really good stuff. So, this is what I do. I put on the thickest socks that I can wear comfortably inside of my boots. So if you have some thick wool socks and you can still fit your foot in there without, you know, losing circulation, go ahead and do that, because the idea in the beginning is to stretch the leather. The best way to do that is sort of exaggerate the size of your foot by using a sock that's a little bit thicker. Now, if you put them on and they're a little bit tight, sometimes you might be able to remove the insole just to give yourself a little bit more room inside. So that's another option. Now what you're gonna wanna do is wear them around your house for a few hours. I know it seems like a long time, but imagine when you're actually out for the day, you don't wanna be caught by surprise, you know, when your heel is slipping and you get a blister. Wear them around your house. Just do some household stuff. Don't get them dirty, but walk around. Feel how they mold with your feet. You know, if there's any interesting pinching points or hot spots or rubbing or anything like that. Be mindful if there's heel lift, if your toes get jammed against the front. Those are all signs that maybe you got the wrong size. At that point, stop, take them off, put them back in the box, and return them for the correct size. At the end of a few hours, you'll have a very good idea whether these boots are going to work or not for you. And at that point, you can begin wearing them outside. When you decide that you're ready to venture out with your new boots, bring your old pair with you. Just throw them in the back of the car with an extra set of socks. You may be very glad that you did. For example, this is what happened to me, all right? I bought my first pair of real boots that I bought brand new and I was really excited about were the discontinued Allen Edmonds Odenwalds. And I had a real issue with those because I have high arches, which means that the top of my foot is always pushing against the top of my boot. And that gets really, really uncomfortable. So I wore them to work, and after a little while, I almost couldn't feel that foot. Now, wearing them around the house, I said, oh, it'll be no problem. But 8 hours in, they got really, really uncomfortable. Luckily, I brought my other pair of boots, so I could swap out to those and I could continue working. Otherwise, have you ever tried to work with boots that are just excruciatingly tight or pinching? It's terrible. So bring another pair of boots with you. At least you have the option to change them out. And as a matter of fact, when you buy a pair of Nicks, they're very, very thick leather and they're hard to break in because they're so robust. They really suggest that you bring a pair of boots with you. You only wear your Nicks for maybe up to lunchtime if you can, and then you swap over. And then you do that for like a week, that you switch back and forth, because little by little you're gonna be wearing them in and they're gonna get there. It's just gonna take some time. So make it as easy as possible on you. Don't just go out, go for broke and say, all right, well that's it, I'm wearing them no matter what. Bring another pair with you. You may be happy that you did. Now, unfortunately, that's kind of a fairy tale. The idea of buying some boots, wearing them around your house, and then going out and living happily ever after, it just doesn't seem to happen. Most of the time, you're gonna have an issue. Something's gonna be tight, something's gonna be rubbing, you're gonna have some sort of discomfort. So here are different ways to alleviate some of the different problems that you might run into. One that I've dealt with on basically every pair of boots that I've bought is my high arches, which again means that the top of my arch is basically pushing against the top of the boot. What I do to alleviate the pressure there is just skip the eyelets. So it may look a little funny, but run the laces and then go over the point which is really pushing into the boot, because you don't want those laces pressing down. You're only supposed to be breaking in the leather, not the laces. As a matter of fact, new laces feel great. So just skip those eyelets and work around it. Let it kind of relieve the pressure. It makes all the difference in the world. And this can also help you if you have, tightness down by the toe box. You can move that anywhere you need to. So that's something that you can do to really alleviate that discomfort. You may feel a little bit of pressure right behind your big toe on the outside or right behind your pinky toe. Most of the time, this means that you bought a boot that's a little bit too narrow. Now, this isn't going to be a huge issue as long as your foot isn't overhanging the actual footbed, because the last thing you want is a welt underneath the ball of your foot. It's not going to feel good at all. So if it's just minor, what you can do is either use a product that I've had a little bit of success with. It's a actual leather softener made by a company named Tenderly. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go get it. It does help, and it's basically a conditioner. The conditioner will help soften that leather in that area, so you can apply that to wherever the stress is, and over time it will help it just relax a little bit. Now, it's not night and day. You're not going to be able to put this stuff on and all of a sudden it's going to be this floppy piece of leather, but it will help moisturize it, and actually moisture is what helps these things really, really fit. I think that's where the idea of soaking your boots in water and then wearing them all day came from, but I just don't recommend that. Most people aren't going to want to do that, and there's a lot more friction between wet feet and wet leather than there is dry feet and dry leather, so they're going to be extremely uncomfortable. I do not recommend that. So this Tenderly leather softener has worked in the past in a pinch, and actually what Nicks Boots recommends for their boots is putting a mixture of alcohol and water in a spray bottle, spraying it on any tight areas and letting the leather relax. This can work too, especially if it's in a controlled spot like that. The only thing you're going to want to be careful of in that case is alcohol can remove some dyes and stains. So if you have a beautiful pair of boots that has some nice antiquing done on them, or a custom paint job, distressing, it might remove that. So alcohol is probably to be avoided. You may have a little bit of heel slippage. That is your heel moving up and down in the back of your boot. Some companies are very smart. I know Beckett Simonon does this, where they put a little piece of either suede or rough out leather in the back of their boot where the heel is to prevent that from happening. Because over time, your heel is going to sort of create its own little pocket back there, and once it really settles in, you shouldn't have a problem. But one of the things that you can do, and I've had to do, is when it's a smooth leather lining, what I've done is taken a little bit of sandpaper. I know, stop cringing, and just sand lightly the area where your heel contacts the leather. This just scuffs it up a little bit. You're not gonna be taking 80 grit and sanding right through it. Take some 320 or something like that. All we wanna do is just make it not shiny, smooth leather. You wanna give it a little bit of grip so it can grab that sock that you're wearing and prevent your heel from slipping out. When you get friction, that's how you get blisters. And if you have a blister, that's just the skin protecting itself, and it's hard to wear your boots for a little while after that. Most of the time, people won't even wear them. They'll say, no, those boots give me blisters, can't wear them. So preventing friction is key. That's one way to prevent your heel slipping out of the boot. One other thing that you can do to prevent heel slippage is locking your heel down with the laces. Now, this is why on hiking boots, you see those eyelets that are way far back by your heel. The idea there is to pull your heel into the boot. Now, there are ways to do that with normal boots that you buy off the shelf. So what you're gonna wanna do is use a surgeon's knot. And all you're gonna do is basically wind the two laces together a couple of times right above where your heel is on the boot. What this is gonna do, it's gonna lock your heel down and not let those laces allow any expansion. Because you wrap that around there, you have more friction and it's much more difficult for the laces to let go or, transition any kind of pressure. So that will really lock your heel in, at least until they've conformed to your foot and you no longer need it. It's an old hiking technique and it works really well. Now, this final method I really don't suggest unless you're having a real hard time with your boots. You can apply a little bit of heat. Now, I don't mean heat gun, putting them next to the fire, because leather is skin. So you're gonna dry the hell out of it. Now you can, heat it up a little bit, maybe with a hair dryer or something that's a little bit of low heat. That's why breaking your boots is always easier in the summertime, because the combination of the moisture your foot gives off naturally and the heat of the outside is really what helps break in that leather. Most of the time, that's not above 100 degrees and it's not soaking your boot. So what we're gonna wanna do is sort of accelerate that. So if you bought your boots in January and it's really cold outside, you can apply a little bit of heat to the areas which you feel like should stretch. The only thing is, right afterwards, I would apply a little bit of leather conditioner, because you just basically dried out that section of the leather. And you also have to be careful, because depending on what kind of leather it is, it could become discolored. So I don't suggest putting heat on your boots unless it's a really drastic circumstance and they need to fit like right away, or it's just something that you can't live without. It's a last resort, yet it is an option under extreme circumstances. So guys, I hope this video has been helpful. This is how I break in my boots, everything from my heavy duty work boots to dress boots, and it just accelerates that process of getting them to the point where they're like a second skin. But of course, I wanna know your tips and tricks, what's worked for you. If there's anything that I got wrong, let me know in the comments below. I enjoy talking to you guys down there, and we can come up with a really good resource for somebody who's just getting into this stuff, maybe years from now, and they can come to this video and look through the comments and watch it and really get some good ideas on how they can break their boots in and get to that stage. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will catch you next time.